Hello, this is S.K. Williams, and I would like to wish everyone a happy Pascha, otherwise known as Easter in English and English-speaking countries, as well as Ostern in Germany, leading to the well-known claim that Easter was originally a pagan holiday passed off as historical facts. Traditionally, I do 3 videos for Easter every year. One is a simple message wishing everyone a happy Easter. The other is an Easter address where I speak on the significance of what can be taught, and the other is a documentary going over the history of Easter, explaining its actual origins and why claims of its pagan origins aren't actually true. This year, though, I am in an odd position. I may very well have time to do all 3 videos because I am isolated now. I was preparing for surgery and having to work to save up money and while at the same time go to school, and it really caused my channel to suffer. I haven't been able to keep up with people, I've lost contact with friends and other issues, but now I've taken time off of work because I tried scheduling a surgery. That won't happen. At least not now. My surgery will happen, but I have to wait for the corona scare to pass us by. And no one's going to hire me. Because even though I work at home, corona's shut everything down. Why do you need market research done if there's no market? I was thinking about getting a job with the U.S. Census, which will be carried out as usual, but I don't know if they have any positions for me. With that being said, I plan on using this time, as I did last time, to try and catch up on work that I had not done before, catch up on friends, and catch up on emails. And I'm still going to do my schoolwork because I'm doing that from home. But it's still a time of mourning. So I don't know if I want to do that many celebratory videos. I have largely recovered from the death of my brother, but I still wish to honor the mourning period. But I also love maintaining my traditions. So, in this video, I'm going to try and combine all 3 into one. Wishing everyone a happy Pascha, or happy Easter. Looking at the significance of the Easter holiday in the context of culture. And at discussing the history of the holiday. To prevent people from being bogged down by debates, I would like to get the first part out of the way, and I already sort of did. I wished everyone a happy Paschal season. Pascha is what the holiday is called in most of the world, or at least some variation of the word Pascha. It is connected to the Jewish Passover, which also falls at about the same time. Contrary to the claims that the Easter holiday has pagan origins and that it was adopted by the Christian Church centuries later in order to either convince pagans to convert or make it easier on pagans who converted, or because they couldn't suppress pagan beliefs, so they simply baptized them, giving them new meaning. The truth is, the Easter holiday is connected to the Jewish Passover and has never really had pagan roots. I'll go into detail about that later. As such, it is connected to the story of Moses and the Exodus, when the Hebrew peoples were slaves in Egypt, and God rose Moses up as a prophet to lead them out of bondage and into freedom. This is actually mirrored in the Christian faith and the story of Jesus. For he was sent into the world to teach us how to live. But he also suffered and died a cruel death on the cross for the remissions of our sins, which leads us to freedom from those sins, and through his resurrection gave us freedom even from death. Even people who are not Christian should be able to appreciate this story. And when connected to the Jewish narrative, it becomes overwhelmingly clear what we are actually celebrating. We are celebrating Jesus, of course, if we are Christian. I don't want to take that away. But there is an underlying concept that makes the celebration of Jesus worthwhile that even Jesus himself told us in the Bible, and it's one people who are not Christian can appreciate. It's one people who are not Jewish can appreciate in the story of the Exodus. For both stories feature people who are enslaved, people who are in bondage, people who have no power over their own lives and who are subject to cruelty and oppression, who find themselves liberated from that. In the story of Moses, it is a political liberation. They are freed from slavery. They are freed from the bondage of toil that the Egyptians put them in, and given their own promised land. And this is, in fact, mirrored in the life of Jesus, who, through his death on the cross, freed us from sin, who freed us from our own vices. Both stories teach us that we need not live in subjugation. We do not have to allow political powers to oppress us. We need not be slaves to them. We need not live as slaves. We can be delivered. What's more, not only need we fear slavery of our lives, but an internal slavery, a slavery to our own vices, to our own shortcomings, to our own pasts. And the story of Jesus exemplifies how we can in fact be free from those vices, free from the past. They don't need to control us. We can be forgiven. We can die to our past and resurrect in newness of life. But like with Jesus, we should not expect that the moment of our death is also the moment of our resurrection. Jesus waited 3 days in the grave before he rose again. And it is said he went through hell before he returned to earth. Sometimes change is hard. Be it political or social change, situational change, or even just personal change. But it can be done. We can rise to resurrection just as Jesus had, looking to him as our example. Perhaps we are enslaved to lust and watch lustful images, if you know what I'm saying. Perhaps we are enslaved to chemical substances, tobacco, alcohol, other illicit substances. Perhaps we are given to despair. Perhaps we have an emptiness in our lives. Perhaps we just can't figure out how not to be a jerk and how not to mess things up. But we can figure it out. Look to Jesus on the cross and realize what he taught us does make us better. And if he is willing to do that, we can put our own work into it. And like him, that which seems to kill us can actually set us free. That is the real challenge of the cross. For you see, it is a paradox. We fear going to the cross because we see only our death in the cross. We fear there is no resurrection. And for many of us, there's not. But what we don't seem to realize is we're headed for the cross either way. And if we're going to be killed by that which imprisons us, Why not do it on our own terms, where there's a chance of resurrection, rather than let others do it for us, nailing us to our cross, where we simply die? Allowing our forces around us, or allowing our own inner problems to destroy us, simply grants them the ultimate power over us. They have won. They have destroyed us. But through Jesus, that implement of death, that symbol of death, the ultimate humiliating shame that is the cross, is transformed into a symbol of life and renewal. Even those of us who are not Christian can at least appreciate the symbolic value of this narrative, the allegory that it can play in our lives, surely. And those of us who are Christian have the added benefit of believing it to be the truth, and which we can aspire to, but even a Christian can see it as an allegory within their own life and circumstance. Just as someone who is neither Christian nor Jew can appreciate the story of Moses being sent to Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world at the time politically. In human terms, Pharaoh was like the President of the United States, the leader of the most powerful nation. And here, poor exile makes demands of him, for he has a higher power, the power of God. And what is the power of God in our lives? But the power of truth and the power of conviction. If Moses can speak on a platform of truth and break the chains that held his people, and if Jesus can voluntarily be nailed to a cross only to rise again, why then do we settle either for our lot in life being oppressive, or our own vices keeping us down? We too can be free. And that is the basis of Passover. Both the Jewish Passover and the Christian Passover. And that is what Pascha means. Of course, many of you would challenge this, pointing out that the Christian holiday isn't called Pascha, it's called Easter. This isn't really true. It's called Pascha in most countries, or a derivation of the word Pascha. And the commonly known fact that the Christians hijacked a pre-existing pagan holiday, either to make it easier for pagans to convert, or make it more comfortable for pagans who did, or perhaps simply because they could not suppress it even though they tried with violence. This well-known fact that it's Ishtar's Day, Ishtar's Day, Easter Day, Easter Day. Nonsense. The day has no connection to Ishtar. Ah, but it does connect to Eostre, the pagan goddess of spring and fertility worshipped by the Celts. Didn't you know? Her sacred animal was the hare. That's why there's an Easter bunny. This hare was originally a bird in a beautiful ancient pagan story that she turned into a hare, but it still laid eggs, and the egg is a fertility symbol. What do eggs have to do with Jesus? Nothing. They're a leftover from the pagan customs. The idea of the egg as a symbol of fertility links to Eostre, a fertility goddess. All these Easter things are clearly pagan. No, they're not. The Easter egg is not attested to prior to the 12th century. It isn't a pre-Christian pagan custom. The Easter bunny is unknown in most of the world. It's a German custom that started in the 1500s with Protestants, not even Catholics. Why would Lutherans in Germany revive an ancient pre-Christian pagan custom based upon a Celtic goddess that lived in Britain? Why would the Lutherans, after breaking from the Catholic Church because they viewed it as not Christian in the true sense, not truly following Christ, turn around and start following a pagan custom that had long since ceased? And what evidence is there that the Easter Bunny came from Eostra's symbol, the hare? For that matter, what evidence is there that Eostre had a symbol in the hare? What evidence is there that Eostre was a fertility goddess? We have scant evidence that there even was a goddess named Eostre. Eostre is, according to the Venerable Bede, somewhat the origin of the word Easter, but it is a very indirect one. For you see, according to the Venerable Bede, there was a month in the Celtic year called Eostra month, and it is within the Eostra month that the Paschal holiday fell. And because the Paschal holiday fell in Eostra month, the people of Celtic Britain referred to the holiday as Easter. Well, Eostra's Day, which became Easter through lingual corruption over time. Bede did say that the month, Eostra month, was named after a goddess named Eostre. But Bede did not claim that Eostre was a fertility goddess. Bede did not claim that the day we call Easter today was specifically a festival held in her honor. Bede did say feasts were held in honor of this goddess in Eostra month, but he did not say that the specific holiday that we hold was one such holiday and that Christians took it over. And in fact, it would be very odd for the Christians to need to, since we have records of Christians celebrating Pascha going back to the 2nd century AD, in Greece and in Rome. They did not call it Easter, though. The holiday was brought to Britain by Christians, and the fact that it fell in Eostra month was coincidental, and it does not seem to have fallen on the same day as any sort of pagan holiday. The Christian holiday is tied to Passover, and the earliest Christians were Jewish after all. That makes sense. Of course, some people insist that Christianity has no value whatsoever, that it is worthless, that it is in fact evil and immoral. To those, nothing I have said about the symbolic value that Easter can hold will matter. It is connected to Christianity, therefore it is evil, and therefore it can be of no value. It can't do any good. Christianity inherently causes division and hate. But I ask you, does your constant criticism of Christianity breed love? Is it really true that Christians are hateful? Even the atheists admit this isn't true, but they say that if you meet a Christian who is not hateful, he is good and kind in spite of his religion rather than because of it. But am I truly to believe a religion who has teachings about loving one's neighbor, about loving one's enemy, is truly based on hate? I have heard atheists claim that loving one's neighbor isn't really loving. Loving one's neighbor only means loving other Christians, but you're allowed to hate other outsiders. Well, if this is true, on what basis do you say that? Jesus didn't just say, love thy neighbor, you know, your fellow Christians, but also, love your enemy. Do not repay evil with evil. Do kindness to all. The Christian religion is not hateful. Whether you believe that Jesus was in fact the Son of God and the Messiah is immaterial. It's even immaterial if you believe he existed as a historical person. Many atheists these days insist he wasn't a real person. It's a nonsensical idea. It's one no credible historian agrees with. And yes, I know I'm wrong about that. Several historians disagree that he existed. Richard Carrier, for example. Richard Carrier's the only example anyone ever cites because he's the only one saying this, and he has no credibility because he hates Christianity, and all of his work is about subverting Christianity. I'm not saying that because I hate him because he's an atheist, or I hate him because I disagree. I'm saying because I'm not going to pretend his biases aren't obvious. But those who say Jesus didn't exist, that doesn't matter to this video. He would still carry great symbolic value, and his teachings are still valuable. And yes, I know, if Jesus didn't exist, he had no teachings, yada yada yada. When we speak of fictional characters, which Jesus is according to people who talk like this, we still say they say things and do things. It doesn't matter if Jesus really existed or not. The Gospels and other sources have him saying things, and we don't go about with other fictional characters saying the writer of this particular passage has the character say. We say the character says them. So please spare me the pedantic need to say he didn't teach anything and didn't say anything because he didn't exist. Jesus did exist as a historical person. This is really an incontestable fact of history, and even those who contest the incontestable should lighten up a bit, because we are going to speak of him as saying things even if we don't think he exists. I've always had a problem with those who insist on making Christianity hateful so that it conforms to their own images, and to denying anything that is connected to Christianity has any worth, and to claiming it's all evil or wrong somehow. Can you not appreciate the art that came from Christianity, the music, the poetry, the philosophy? Can you not appreciate any of its teachings? Must we insist that Christians have been racist, bigots, and hateful monsters, and slave drivers, and oppressors of women, and hating gays is all the fault of the Christians? Should we pretend that Christians are nothing but monsters? And should we deny any value to the teachings of the Christian faith simply to replace it with an atheist religion that we must pretend is not a religion but a lack of belief in a god, and prattle on about the official definition of religion requiring belief in a god because someone read it on Google once? Come now. For those who say the greatest flaw of religion is how divisive it is, your alternative, your atheism, your lack of religion, seems to be rather divisive in its own right. And it's not like the atheist community doesn't have its own share of infighting. It's not even really true that no one has killed in the name of atheism. They have. And even if they hadn't, we have plenty of atheists killing, so even if they weren't killing in the name of atheism, you're still just as dead when they kill you. A world in which religion dies and reason prevails will not be a world of peace. It will be a world of atheists killing people, whether in the name of religion, whether in the name of atheism or not. It's immaterial. So I ask you, rather than your usual vitriol against Christianity and discussions of how hateful it is, perhaps appreciate the teachings of Jesus. Perhaps appreciate this cultural significance, and sit at our table and eat with us. Laugh with us. Celebrate with us. That alone does not require you to believe that Jesus was the Christ. That alone does not require you to believe that God exists. But if your greatest criticism is that religion divides us, don't be divisive. Sit with us. Sit with the Christians as they celebrate Easter. Sit with the Jews as they celebrate Passover, and perhaps we can all sit together. Together at a united table. Together, sharing the stories of Moses and Jesus, and the values of love and sacrifice and freedom that they give us. And using those stories to unite a culture, not on all points, but at least around the fact that we have these stories in common, and we share these stories in common, and that they do in fact teach values that we have in common. I've said my piece now. I hope everyone has a happy holiday season, celebrating Pascha, the Passover, both for Jews and for Christians, and hopefully for everyone else. I shall sign off now, hoping you all have a safe and happy season, even in light of the great plague that does come upon the land. Stay safe. Thank you. God bless. And goodbye.